Hello. Thanks for tuning in to our creative stream again. I'm Michael, and I'm an intern at Stitch Media. Today I'll be working on doing some plant design for Terrarium. So let's get to it. Hello. Welcome. So I actually have been designing some stuff, but for the sake of this stream, I will be building off of what I've already designed. So over here we have I'm painting up some Hello Stitch Media. Cool. So over here I'm picking up a brush that I find that I would like. This one looks pretty good. So I'm currently building up basically it will. So we're starting off with basically the foundation of a plant. A trunk, I guess you would say, or the stem. So, whoa. Let's get a solid eraser. So this one looks pretty good. Want to make sure the minimum is pen pressure. And there we go. Hello there, welcome. So I should probably zoom in just so we can see a bit better. There we go. Whoa. So right now this is just a start of it. We'll get to the main part once we build up our base. So over here I have something like if you ever cut down a tree, which I hope you don't, you'll see something like this at the top of the tree, and it's kind of like a giant I guess like a helmet of some sort, but it's not really a helmet, with a lot of tree branches coming out. So instead of having branches come out, I'm gonna draw like gigantic leaves just to make things slightly more interesting. So over here like that, and another one over here. Don't worry if it doesn't look good at first, because again, you're building up the shape of it, so it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna, after I have the tree leaves, I'm gonna block in the actual leaves so it's separate from the I am a single layer painter, but when the time comes, multi-layer is better by far. Yeah, like I think I'm gonna use another layer in just a moment when we have something underneath these leaves. So basically I want to have some leaves going underneath the leaves we already have, and that way it'll create a more, I guess, appeal to the eye. So rather than having just leaves going on a single plane, we have it on a different level, so it looks slightly more interesting. And again, it's a choice whether we want to do a completely straight up trunk, or do we want to have it somewhat dynamic? So I think we can explore with the lasso tool. So if you ever use, or if you've never used the lasso tool, it's a tool that you can just, I guess, highlight the area you want and manipulate everything within the selected area, and that way you can. Yes, I think that's yes. So if you look at you can't see what's on the screen. So if you look at where I'm pointing at, the lasso tool, you can actually wrap around different shapes and pick up different areas. And from that, you can try different shapes if you feel like it would make it more interesting. So here I'm trying out different angles of the plant and see if it works. And if it doesn't, then I will go back to it. So I'm just trying to figure out my buttons on my keyboard. So over here, it doesn't look, so it doesn't look too good at the moment. So I'm trying to trim it down a bit so it looks slightly more organic, like that. So that looks slightly better. So if you ever walked into the park or some sort of nature, if you ever been outside of studio and not stay at home forever, you can probably see trees with a lot of different angles and different, I guess, way they grow upwards. And it's not always a straight upward kind of growth. And in this case, if I want to make it slightly more interesting, that's what we should do here. Just add in a bit more angle. Initially, I had it straight, but but I got comments suggesting that it should be a bit more dynamic, and I do agree. So here we are testing out a more dynamic tree with the same concept I have. So is every tree unique? That I cannot answer you. I'm sorry. I mean, you can think of it as unique, and no one's gonna tell you no. So over here, I'm trying to add like over here, I'm adding a more, I guess, fun design. So rather than having something so static, I decided to add a bit more interest to the tree. So instead of just having a tree trunk with leaves on it, having these at the top would make it look more slightly more interesting, right? I mean, you're wondering what's at the top here. I don't even know what's at the top, but it looks good, so we'll keep it. That's fine. Well, okay. Forgot about the layer underneath. So here we go. We want to have the tree leaves again coming out. We want the tree leaves to be underneath a bit darker, so it looks more interesting. Like that. I think that's pretty good. So make sure you save your work. For now, save it to the desktop. And my naming system is P for plants. And whatever I'm drawing, it's the first letter and then the number of it. So P for plants and 1 for plant 1. Conventional. Hold on. Okay. So now we have our plant. Underscore or space. No, none of that. Just because I'm too lazy. It takes to hold shift and to also push the button, so just the number is cool with me. I mean, if you want to put underscore or space, go ahead. But for me, no, I don't have it. So this looks okay for now. Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially when you use like Mac and PC, you're like pressing Alt and Control all the time. Cause if you ever use Mac, the command key is where Alt is for PC. So I'm like always pressing Alt without knowing, and it just screws up my Photoshop all the time. So like if you press Alt on Photoshop, you get the top highlighted instead. So I always mess it up. But I'm getting more familiar, so that's good. So over here, I'm trying to make it more, I guess, appealing by having more trees and see how it looks as a collection of plants. And again, playing with different scales, I think. Rotating it, kind of like that. Again, you can always lasso tool it, lasso tool, and then you basically move your selection to where you want it. And sometimes it works really well. In this case, it does. And now we have more trees that are the same, but still pretty good. And here I want to make myself a basically a floor. And how I'm doing the floor right now is just having a hey, where's this one? So remember about the thing I said with layers? So I'm really bad with layers. Again, I was drawing on top of this tree and I didn't even know. So I'm actually gonna merge all the layers. I know that sounds like a bad idea, but in my case, it worked, so I'm good with merging all the layers. I mean, if you're not comfortable with merging all the layers, then don't do it until you get comfortable. So for now, I have Uh, Sometimes when you have one layer, you don't really need to, but once I get into like folders, I'll name them in like what they are in a sense. If it's a plant, then I'll write plant 1, that kind of thing. So right now I'm adding a hopefully I'm eyeballing this right now, but hopefully it's a isometric view. It looks a bit awkward, but once you have looks a bit awkward right now. It's fine. But once you have more in the bottom, it'll look slightly better. Hopefully. Again, I'm using the lasso tool and I'm holding Alt at the same time for me to draw a straight line, basically. So if you hold Alt, you'll notice the lasso tool actually changes into a more angular lasso tool. I forgot the name of that, but yeah, basically it's a tool that works the same as the lasso tool. Works the same as the lasso tool. Polygono. I don't know how you pronounce it, so you figure it out. So again, I'm holding Alt to get my polygon. I'll just call it polygon. Polygon. Lasso tool. I messed up, so undo is your friend. Again, trying to draw and talk at the same time is kind of hard. I mean, trying to get used to it, but sometimes I just need full concentration. And here we go. I think we have it just about right. And over on this side, I'm like walking and chewing gum. I mean, I guess when you think about all the stuff you have to do, you kind of just freeze up. Like if you think about, you never have to think about breathing, but once you start thinking about it, you're like conscious about breathing and you're just like, oh, am I telling myself to breathe now? That kind of thing. I don't know. Does anyone ever wonder like how we just breathe without thinking? So zen. Yeah, so if you hide the layer, you'll notice how messy it actually looks, but that's fine. That's why we have layers. And now I'm just going to merge all the layers. Again, for people who are afraid to merge your layers, that is okay. I think it's normal. Over here, I'm slightly lowering a corner so it looks okay to the eye. Sometimes when you have the right angle, even though it's correct mathematically, it just doesn't look right visually. So just like in a lot of graphic design, when the kerning is, not the kerning, when the alignment is centered, but it just doesn't look right even though it's centered. It's the same concept here, even though it looks, technically it's supposed to be isometric, but it doesn't look too right. So I adjust it slightly to fix the how we perceive the whole image. So right now it looks like it's sliding off on this side. It's really heavy on this side, so it feels like it's lopsided towards the left. So yeah, I basically lower this side to balance it out without the ground layer. Oh, you mean like from before? Yeah, unfortunately, we have to merge it. Whoops. So again, I'm just here copy pasting multiple different, not different, multiple layers of the same tree, and I'm slightly adjusting the angles of it to make it more interesting. So we have the sizes. We're playing around with different sizes. And the angle. I don't know, it naturally came as a pair, so I guess I just kept putting them as a pair. But let's have one over here that isn't much of a pair. We'll just tweak the perspective a bit. Lower it. So this one will be super tiny. And it'll be right here. Yeah, I mean, once you know the tool, you'll work a lot faster. Just knowing how you can easily achieve the same thing without actually drawing it. I know it's kind of cheating in a sense, but when you have a lot of deadlines, this is what you gotta do. So again, I'm trying to make a giant tree here just to play with scale. So again, and over here, even smaller tree that comes off from here. I think that looks slightly better. So now the whole thing looks like a place, and maybe, just maybe, we can have a super duper tiny one. Just like here. And just like that. And I think now we have a better scale of the one that's going out the main stem. Yeah, I think they just naturally came in a pair, all of them at least. So now I will do something that's painful for a lot of people, which is merging all the layers together. But in my case, I'm merging them for, I guess, more efficient step later on, and you'll see what I mean in just a second. I know, merging is painful. I mean, so here I'm just adding some tiny grass. So the reason why I work in black and white is because with black and white you can easily add color, but also see how readable your image is. If I were to do this on color, I might not, I guess, see the value correctly. But again, one can like train themselves to practice reading it in color. But for me, I'm not there yet. I'm still just a not so good drawer. So I am practicing drawing as I go. Keep hitting the Windows key, but because when you have Mac, everything is there and there's no window key. So I think this brush is actually ruining my perspective. Let me get another brush. So I'll get this one. And I'll do pen pressure. Cool. Not much of a surface, it's rather just having more color variation, like value, so then it doesn't look like it's a super flat, boring plane, if you know what I mean. Like it looks a bit more worked on in a sense. Like if you look here compared to here, you'll notice how it looks a bit plain in a sense, right? Like the darker value is okay, but having more difference in the plane really helps create what kind of environment your plants are on. So over here, again, I'm just really slightly adding these edges. So it doesn't have to be much, it just has to create some sort of value variation. Keep hitting the Windows key. There we go. So right now I'm just using my brush, running it over
Like I don't see any microphone hotkeys. You can hear me? Yeah. How about now? How about now? How about now? Yeah. Yes. So what? So I didn't change anything. I really didn't change any of the settings, but I'm glad it's working now. So I'm just gonna walk away.
Was it the alt key or?
I don't know what key it was, if any. But like if it is a thing, it's not a Twitch or an OBS thing, it's like a system-wide thing. Because OBS doesn't seem to have problems with the mic right now.
Right.
Anyway. Oh, it's Zorky from yesterday. We got repeat viewers.
Woo.
Look at that.
Let me bring back the chat. There we go. All right, and let's continue with our plans. So I guess here we're all just waiting to have some colors on our plans. And if you ever use a adjustments on Photoshop, you'll find that you have a bunch of options, but the only option we want is something called gradient map. And if you ever used that before, you'll know that it maps basically your value from the darkest to the lightest. So instead of having it all on every layer, I created a clipping mask that would clip to the layer below it, meaning it would just take whatever pixels below it and use that instead. So I have that, and then basically I'm gonna map the value to my liking. So if I want the branches to be white, that might be interesting. And basically have the leaves to be green. And there we have something that looks already like an alien plant. I mean, it doesn't even look alien. Not if you make it purple. There. That looks kind of alien. So, if you're a fan of pretty colors, here is how you get pretty colors. So over here I'm adding another layer. Again, for clipping mask, it is magic. Very useful if you just do value and then you add in the color. So again, it is something you can play with all the time, right? Like if you don't really like these color, maybe you can have this. Or, I mean, the default ones aren't that good, to be honest, and I'm not gonna lie. It's better to have one of your own presets and maybe save it if you like and work from there. So back to what I had. I like have purplish with white branch. So okay. So with that being said, I have something like this, but I think it's missing like a third color. It's only white and pink currently, so I'm gonna try adding maybe green color. Let's see if it works. I have to put the color above it. So I created a new layer, a blank layer, and then I changed the blending mode to color. And with that, we can probably color the leaves to a green at the edge of the leaves. And if we don't like the color, stick to it for now, and I'll show you a way that you can quickly change all the colors together. So you want to make sure you have all the colors the same, around the same at first. Don't change your color halfway through or you'll regret it. So here again, I am adding a green. Right now I'm not liking it as much. After we have all the colors around the same. So let's get all the colors first. So it doesn't matter at this point if you go over the edge. We're still at the working process, and it's all about the idea. So maybe having gradient isn't that good. Maybe we can have like polka dots or lines to indicate different kinds of plant. So the plant can mimic things around it to do different things, in a sense. If you ever like see why, I forgot what I was gonna say. But if you ever remember why animals have certain patterns, that's because it's used to signal their predators that they're dangerous and to leave them alone. Same thing with plants. If they have different kinds of pattern, they can most likely be used to scare away the predators, like I'm poisonous, don't eat me, or you're gonna die, that kind of thing. So with that in mind, we can design our plants based on that. So right now it kind of looks generic, and I will change that in just a second. So it looks like, it looks okay. It's not too bad, but it's not there yet. So let's change up the color. I like this. It looks like a... So I press Command U, which brings up the hue and saturation. And since I'm on a separate layer with the colors and my tree branches separated, I can add in different color and see which one works and which one doesn't. Again, you can also like try different plants, right? You don't have to be like sticking to the same things. Oh, I like blue. Blue looks pretty good. What do you think? Green looks pretty typical. Red looks pretty good. Something you would see in video games. And blue looks like... blue looks pretty good too, actually. Maybe I'll get something like this. But blue doesn't really give the kind of like a warning sign to the predators, whereas red or like green, they kind of signals that they're dangerous or some kind of poison are on them. Maybe it's not a poison tree, but we want to make it dangerous. That's our whole goal here. So I can add in a bit more red. I think red works better than green or blue. So let's have that. And with that, let's add in another layer, and we can perhaps have some branch variation. So again, if you look at birch or other kinds of tree, you'll know that they're not always gonna be like very flat. But again, I think we're designing it around to be very minimalistic. These will be easily created on different kinds of software. not just Photoshop. So we have to keep that in mind. So I'm just quickly adding some texture to it. Not a lot, just a tiny bit, to make it slightly different. I think there's some blue poison. Yeah, blue does have, I think blue does have some poison indication for some animals, but with the trees we were working on, I don't think it worked that well, but I could be wrong again, right? These are all choices like you have to make while you're designing, and you can't be right all the time. I mean, you can try to be right all the time, but chances are you won't be. So I keep that in mind all the time. So yeah, I'm just exploring in a sense to see what works and what doesn't. Over here, I'm basically doing the same thing I'm doing. Actually, I don't need to have the gradient map again. So instead, this time I'm going to create a layer, create clipping mask. So I made a clipping mask, and then I'll go to blending mode to color. And here comes the magic part of Photoshop. Again, with color, we don't have to worry too much about the value. It's all about the color, if that makes sense. So I'll just do it and you'll see it. So again, I'm adding the color here and I still get the same value. Like I'm not losing any value in painting this. So I still have the really dark tone here, the dark shade, and then with the really bright tint. Not that bright, but bright enough. And tint. And then I always keep my brush at a medium or low opacity, just so then when I do add in different colors or different brushstroke, it feels more dynamic and not flat. Maybe you want a flat kind of style, but for this whole design process, I'm choosing to do a more variation kind of style. Here I am grouping them. So again, with the naming system, I don't usually name things, but when I have a group, I tend to name it plant 1. And then with that, I can just copy. So I press Control J to duplicate the entire folder. And then I want to merge the group. So once I merge the entire group, I'll have essentially one layer with the tree. And just like that, we have 2 of the same tree. Woohoo! And look, they're like tiles. They can like stack on each other. Yeah, I think I just got a whole day just like going through different shortcuts on Photoshop. So I went through like all these tabs and I was looking at it. I'm like, I can't work by pressing these tabs all the time. So I try to like spend a day memorizing all these shortcuts. It certainly helps, but it's not a mandatory thing. So I think red, this color looks pretty good. So I think this color can be in like a really hot area, like a fire burning area, and the tree is kind of like immune to flame. I don't know, I could be wrong, but again, we just want to explore all the options, and I'm duplicating it again. Look, it's like a whole tile set. And again, I'm just changing the hue here, so nothing really drastic except for the color. So blue looks pretty good. I think we've already like gone through purple. I think green looks typical, right? I think blue is definitely the way to go. So blue looks pretty good. Yeah, I think these look pretty okay. Now, one way to really change up your whole, get like a fresh eye on your own painting is basically you change the background color. Now it's like a completely different feel to a white background. Everything kind of pops up more, but at the same time you notice all the what's not really working. Like the branches look a lot brighter compared to a darker background, and that's usually fine. But this is how I get like a fresh eye on my drawings, so you can have an even darker background. I mean, these really make it pop. Again, like that. Remember to save your work, so Control S, save your work. Save your work, and then I have basically I have one folder with all the layers, and then basically I just copy the folder, merge them into one layer, and now I have one layer to work with. And yeah, I think like that we can try to approach different things more. Let's leave that for now, or maybe let's continue working on it. I feel like we can work more around the trunk, like what could be on the trunk. Let's do it. So I like the red, so let's take the red, zoom in, and let's add in some more stuff to it. So what are some stuff that grows on tree? Well, we have a lot of fungi, I guess. Fungi kind of grow on tree. Explosive. Ooh, that might be pretty cool to have here. Kind of like bananas. Oh, that's cool. I was just gonna say banana. You're right. Let's do it. Let's add some banana to it. So these actually turn out looking like spikes, but we'll fix it. Don't worry. All right. I like the banana idea, so let's add banana. Pine cone, maybe we can add the pine cones to another biome tree. For the flame one, actually, do you think flame explosive pineapple will work better with the flame trees? Let's try both. Let's have one tree have banana and the other tree have explosive. Oh, I read pine cones. Pineapples really up on the tree all the way, like explosive pineapples. All right. Let's try banana. So that might be hard to see with all the yellow leaves around it, but we'll try. Yeah, I mean, at first I thought you said explosive pine cones. I was excited about it until I reread it and I was like, pineapple. I don't know about pineapple, you know. So these bananas aren't looking like bananas. That's because we haven't added the shade. So give banana some shade. And there we go, banana. Now we have to add the green part of the banana, you know, like the top part. Actually, I don't know. I'm really bad at this. It didn't come out as banana. But here's a way to make sure people know they're bananas. You're right, bananas. Now people have to know they're banana, and you don't have to draw it that detailed. All right, let's try some pineapple. I forgot how it looks. Oh, I remember how they look. So they look like that. A giant circle with that thing at the top. And I think a lot of like spikes, right? Not spikes. What are those called? Like on pineapple. Well, they're not really explosive, but there we go. I mean, now they look like they have some kind of fruits. I mean, we can try adding some kind of like mist to really make it look nice. What's this? Oh, these are leaves. I didn't even realize. I mean, technically you can have something like this. You can have something like you know how trees have something running down. And it's all about like your imagination. You can like test these out. Looks super alien. Well, the thing about plants always having their like fruits hiding, I would say, is because, well, I don't know why actually. Some fruits are always like in plain sight, but others are always hidden. Like I couldn't. Sometimes if you look up in the tree, like, you know, they just always hide the fruits. Maybe it's to protect people from eating it. I don't know. Maybe should we? Yeah, I think those fruits kind of just drop down onto the floor. Those ones are like the ones that are meant to be spread. Like they just drop down onto the floor when they're ready. Like I know pine cones drop because they like spread. I don't know. I could be just speaking this from absolutely nothing, but that's what I assume. Again, we can change the colors of these. Whoops. We can change the colors of the, what do you call these? Like strings? Tree strings? I don't know. Tree strings. We can make it to red. I mean, blue. Wow, blue looks pretty good. Well, we don't want it to stand out too much. That looks okay, actually. Fines, yes. Fines. Thank you. I don't know. Whenever you want to say something, you always tend to forget the things you want to say most. Um, and then when you don't want to remember it, you just like, it pops up in your head and it's already too late. And everyone's gone home and you're just like, oh, okay. Hey, thanks, Stitch Media. Yeah, so trying to add more elements to it. I think these ones are cool, but they're a bit hard to. I mean, that's always the case, right? Like, you forget something and then that's what it comes out. So yeah, I do think that the finds do look nicer, but I don't know how complicated it is to if you were to model something like this. So again, we're thinking a lot about different application, not just on Photoshop. So how it would look in game and all that stuff. Hence why we decided to paint the floor, even though it didn't mean much in this case, but you can really see or get a feel of how it might look in game. Yeah, I think that's about it. We have our bananas. We have our explosive pineapples. And we have different colors, and hopefully they look drastically different enough and dynamic to be, thinking about the next step. And yeah, thanks for joining us today, and we hope you watch again. And I'll continue with more designs next time we're on. So yeah, we'll be back with more updates. So see you soon.